Today we're going to talk about the lesser known but completely legal mechanic that allows players in the know to have an unbelievable advantage over you.
What happens is you're flying against people with superhuman ability.
And depending on how you choose to play War Thunder, there may be nothing you can do about it.
It is not really compelling gameplay in any way, shape or form.
This is not good because it doesn't bring more skill into the fight.
This is a discussion that's been going on for years. The only conclusion is that it's an unfair advantage and it shouldn't exist.
In January 2016, 17,000 people tuned in live to watch the War Thunder League final. But today, despite the growth of the general player base, the tournament scene remains niche. So you probably know what this video is about, but if you don't, I'll catch you up on what you need to know. In War Thunder, there's three main game modes: Arcade, Realistic and Simulator. While Arcade and Realistic have relatively similar control inputs, being mouse aim, Simulator has a more complicated system giving you more control over the aircraft. This is the problem, because if you use the simulator controls in the Realistic or Arcade game modes, your plane just flies better.
If people don't really know, in many planes, not all, but in many planes, using sim controls is better than the RB controls.
Full reel controls, what people call SB controls, allows a person to pull more AOA than you, and there's no way that you can fight somebody who can sustain perfect rate.
Fights devolve into what they call S-turning, pulling on the stick as hard as possible, and by pulling on the stick I mean they just press the S key on their keyboard.
For example, if you take BF109 F4, if you're not using sim controls, you are basically capped at 59% of elevator maximum. When you're using SB, you will basically be able to go to 81%.
Quite how bad the problem is demonstrated in this footage. Here's two mouse aim players turning at the exact same rate. Their turn circle is near identical, but now the player we're spectating is going to switch to simulator controls. And you can see quite how immediate the effect of simulator controls is on the flight performance of the aircraft. What this means is if you want to play at the highest levels of War Thunder Air tournaments, you have to use simulator controls, otherwise you just lose.
No one likes it, but everyone's forced to use it, and it's really crap.
This is not a difference of skill. Like, any noob that knows a bit how to control a plane in SB will beat anyone that is not using SB.
What's unbelievable is despite these mechanics being in the game for years, they are never really spoken about outside of the tournament dueling community. And that's really the core of the problem here, because whether you believe sim controls are an issue, you must at least recognise that there's trouble with expecting players who have played most of their time in War Thunder with mouse aim suddenly being expected to play differently just because that's what they need to do to be able to compete. More to the point, if we want the esports part of the game to grow, esports is as much about the people watching as the people playing, and if the people watching don't understand what's going on the screens, it's just inherently less relatable and downright confusing.
From a viewing standpoint and from a casting standpoint, it's very hard to tell stories, it's very hard to show people being better than one another.
It just ruins RB for what it is, right? Because when you think of RB, you think of mouse aim. You don't think of somebody using a virtual joystick to rate perfectly.
And while this is mostly being used in tournaments, it doesn't stop anyone using it in ARB, and maybe it explains that one time that you got out-timed by a plane that you didn't know could turn that hard. If you're ever watching a tournament or maybe even competing in one, I hope this video has brought you some awareness of the mechanics that you need to know about. I'm definitely curious about any thoughts you have, if you knew about this mechanic, what you think should be done about it, and if you enjoyed this video about a mechanic you didn't know existed, you're definitely going to want to click on this video to learn about a tank you didn't know existed.